Welcome to another edition of Uncle Kemi's class in chemistry. Today, I'll be giving you a brief explanation on what it takes to hit your A1 in your chemistry SSE WAEC examination for 2026. A lot of students have issues when it comes to hitting A1 in chemistry, and I will tell you the reason behind that. Most times, we already know that in our chemistry examination, we have two major parts. The part that has to do with the alternative to practicals and the other part that has to do with the theory and the OBJ. And most times, the problem this student may have is as a result of failure to follow guidelines in their alternative to practicals. Join me as I take you through the guides on what to follow, the rules that must be followed in order to hit your maximum score that will elevate you to your A1 in your chemistry examination. Now here on the board, we have our table readings, and this table in the alternative to practicals carries 8 marks. 8 marks on this part right here. And there are few rules that you must follow when it comes to your alternative to practicals. One of them is that this table must be well presented. Now look at what I did here. From the table we have our Burette reading, which is represented in CMQ. Very important. And then the next we have the final, also in CMQ, initial reading, also in CMQ, and value of acid used also in CMQ. 2, you have your rough titer, first titer, second titer, and the third titer. You must memorize how to present this table. Very, very important. The next part you can see where we have our indicator. Our indicator is represented at the top of the table where we have our methyl orange. In this case, we are working with methyl orange as our indicator. The next part is our pipette, and our pipettes can either be in 25 CMQ or in 20 CMQ. And don't forget, this table must start with your rough titer, first titer, second titer, and your third titer. However, it is not compulsory that you must do 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes you can start with your rough titer, first titer, and second titer. Your average titer must not be less than 2. So you can say your first and second divided by 2. But if you want to use 3 different titer values, you can start with your 1, first titer, second titer, and third titer, all over 3 to get the average titer. Remember, rough titer must not be included when you want to get or solve for your average titer used in the table. Now, these parts, you must ensure they are well stated and tabulated to get your A1. Step number 2 on your table readings. Now, if you look at the table presented right here on the board, you will observe my values have been imputed on the table. Now, let me use this opportunity to make you understand some of the errors that most students do, not knowing that can also deduce or deduct their mark. Now, in this case, look at my first reading. In the first part or the first column, where we have our initial reading, which is always 0.00, was the final value. And then the final value will now tell us the value of the acid or the volume of the acid that was used to neutralize the base. In this case, to get my value of acid, we do the final minus the initial, and here will be my answer. And then this is for the rough. Remember, the rough will not be included in your average titer. Look at this part. We had our initial value to be 0.00 CMQ, and then when we carry out our titration, and the final value obtained from the acid was 20.20 CMQ. Now, to get my value of acid used, we have to do my final minus initial, and that will give me this value. And then we did that on the second titration, 20.30. We filled our acid up to the brim to 0.00 CMQ. And when we got our final value, we did our final minus initial, and then we have our value of acid used. We also did that for the third titration. Fill it up to the 0.00 cm mark of our burette, and then our final value that was used to titrate against the base was 20.40 CMQ. And to get the value of acid used, we do our final minus initial, and then we arrived at 20.4 CMQ. Observe something. There is no shading on my table. A lot of students make this mistake. Do not shade. A lot of us will come and you clean and you come and write. No, don't do that. It is not a good idea in your practical, in your table presentation. Avoid shading. So do not shade. That is rule number one. Number two, you must make sure that your value must range between +2 or +1 or -1 or -2. It must be within that range. What do I mean by that? We are dealing with a concordance value now. Here are the values that we got from our titration. The first, the second, and the third. Now let me explain what you must observe that most students don't know that can deduct their mark. Now look at this, 20.20. Now look at the difference between these and these. The difference is 1. So it is in a concordance value. Look at these and these, 20 and 40. They can also go because the difference between these and these is 2. So they can actually work. But what if you have a situation where you have something like this? Now I want to change this to, let me change it to 50 as your final value. Let's say 50 right here as your final value. Now in this case, when you are trying to get your average titer, it is wrong for you to do this plus this plus this. Why? Because here is 2 and here is 5. Now the difference between 5 and 2 is 3. They are not in concordance value. Now these can deduct your mark. So I repeat, when you are presenting your values on the table, ensure concordance reading. Now in this case, if I have 20.20, 20.30, they are good to go. If I have 20.20, 20.30, and 20.40, they are good to go because they are in concordance value. When you have your value something like this, you may have something like, let's say 20.20, and here you have 20.50. Which one do you think will go? Will it be this plus this plus this, or this plus this? In this case, what you are supposed to use is this plus this divided by 2. Remember, to avoid this error when it comes to concordance value, there is no need for you to impute such value on this table because you have already made a big mistake because the values are not concordant to each other. So it is wise, when you know your average titer, your final titer in each reading, make sure that the value are in concordance to one another. So what will I do in this case? This has to be corrected to either 20.20 or 20.30 or 20.40. I can use 20.40 if I want to. Now in this case, it's from here, this is 2, and here for the difference is just 2. This and this, they are together. This and this, the difference is just 2. So we can actually say our average titer will be 20.20 plus 20.40 plus 20.20 divided by 3. Rule number 3 that you must avoid. A lot of students do this a lot of times in the examination hall based on my experience. One thing they do is that they will start by using pencil to shade or to trace their table or to write their values with pencil. Then when they are done with the table, they will now start using their pen to sketch or to rewrite whatever has been written on the table. That is an error. I repeat, that is an error. Do not use pencil to trace or to put on your table. All has to be written in pen.